Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, we will start with the first one, the Sustainable Housing Society. So, it follows the design thinking process, research, analysis, ideation, then prototyping and then recommendations. It uses these tools, brainstorming, mind mapping, interviews as part of the primary research, then the activities mapping, causal mappings and then prototyping it. This is being implemented in the project, and that is the name of the project, Sustainable Housing Societies. Okay. So, it is both a system as well as service design project. I will explain. The project is done by 3 students, Anaga, Drishti and Preeta. Initially, they did not know what exactly to work on, so they brainstormed on a lot of ideas. In fact, they had a list of 39 topics which they brainstormed, and finally, they came to about, you can see that 7 of them, and out of which one of them was sustainable home systems. So, they picked on that and they thought that they will work further on that. If you look at the contents of what they did, it started with introduction, understanding the system, primary and secondary research, did lot of mappings, out of which causal loop diagrams was one of them. They looked at problem area and its sub problem areas. They also looked at different user groups and then they thought of the final solution. So, it started with brainstorming with the housing society and its components. Let us have a look at a few of them, the houses, the types of houses, the kind of amenities which are there in the houses, the kind of existing solutions for sustainability, and they also did further mappings. These were specific mappings connected with the subsystems. Subsystems could be, for example, the services, the security, the maintenance, okay, and they looked at this in totality and saw if there were interconnections between the different subgroups. They looked at the daily life of an individual right from morning till evening, and you can see there are a lot of activities in the morning within the household, and again lots of activities in the evening within the household. You can see red ones are the concerns with respect to sustainability. The blue ones talk about the modes, for example, conservation of electricity or the use of transport. Okay, so, it is a very nice map which kind of shows you what happens in a typical day with respect to an individual who lives in this particular society. And there are a lot of takeaways if you study this and you can pinpoint where exactly sustainability interventions could be made. They also looked at why sustainable practices are not mapped, for which they kind of map the cause and the effect. Okay. So, you can see that for example, the pandemic, the lack of time, there are many concerns which are interconnected together, and the more connections it has, you can actually study these and see that what affects which one. Okay. So, the cause and effect is kind of very clearly shown within this diagram. So, out of this secondary research, they came out to some inferences. For example, they realized that it requires a collective effort to tackle sustainability. They also realized that the knowledge of what sustainability is needs to be improved within the society. There's also lack of space, okay, and for example, they realized it might be difficult to implement sustainability issues within the existing space. Also, the initial installations costs are very high, and also there were some problems with respect to accessing these services. Okay, so lack of convenience and time was a general felt need. Okay, so within this context, they decided let's do some more primary research, for which they did a survey and got about 115 responses. Okay, for example, here they had to tick what they were aware of. Okay, concerns about sustainability from a larger point of view. They got feedback from the responses. They also looked at what is sustainability. Do they actually use any of the following things, okay, in their daily life? Okay, so that was also a very good feedback, from the users who responded to this survey. Okay, so on and so forth, and finally they said that let's do a diagram in which the interconnectedness of different aspects are connected together. Okay, for which, for example, convenience, awareness, reluctance to switch were the major concerns. Okay, and there are lots of other factors. For example, reliability is a factor, number of people is a factor, accessing technology is a factor, existing product lifetimes is a factor. Okay, so all of them are interconnected, and you can see that the arrows go from one to another. So you can see the cause and effect between this. So this is a causal diagram understanding what are the different concerns within the housing society. So they came to defining what exactly is the problem area. They realized that there are plenty of solutions already existing. Okay. And not a lot of these have been adopted. Okay, so it also said that it is not necessary to try to develop more sustainable alternatives, but if you can actually implement some of the existing ones, it could solve a lot of these problems. So the main problem it looked like is in terms of adoption. So they kind of redefined the problem statement to saying that we'll promote the adoption of sustainable alternatives by tackling problems of inconvenience, awareness and reluctance. So the proposition was they thought of a time-based approach to make the transition from what the current lifestyle is to incorporating sustainable practices and options. You have to also tackle issues of reluctance and also enabling awareness at a society level. Okay, so the final solution that we worked on was actually try to make a framework that people can actually adopt and follow in order to make a plan for implementing sustainable practices across a period of time. They also realize users are not the same kind. At one end you have the very adamant user who doesn't want to do anything to do with sustainability. At the same time, you have users who already adopted sustainability practices in their daily life, and you have in between. So they decided to make it into 4 groups. At the first groups are the one action stage is they've already adopted sustainable alternatives. The preparation stage, the user group 2, those who want to adopt sustainable alternatives, but they probably don't know how to do it. Okay. The third one, they know about sustainability, but don't want to adopt right now. And the fourth one are the adamant ones who not very reluctant to adopt sustainability practices. So let's say we have 4 of these user groups. They also thought of a structured framework to this activity. So they put users on the Y scale, okay, those who wanting to change, those who don't want to change. So you had the user group 1, 2, 3 and 4. And on the X axis you had a plan of action, the phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So these are changes that you do to, adopting sustainable practices across a period of time. So that means you need to have some activities in these phases, and then you need to probably think of a platform to articulate and record these changes, so the people see a benefit in adopting this method. This diagram served as a framework for conceiving of what next to do. So, this phase 0, they ask 3 questions: what, who and how. What, for example, is initially just planting the idea of sustainability in the minds of the people in the society. Who, they thought that it might be good to find out who are the stakeholders, for example, the NGOs or business people who provide sustainability solutions, get in touch with them. Okay, and then make some marketing strategies, to tell the society about the benefits to the consumer finally if they adopt sustainable solutions. And the phase 1 was actually slowly starting to adopt and implement these. So, what involved better accessibility and availability of information, so that some people who are willing to change can make a smooth and easy shift to this. So, it means that you actually looked at user group and 1 who were willing to actually make the changes, and then you had to create awareness about this through media. You onboard them, you have some activities to facilitate this adoption and spread. The phase 2 involved reducing the reluctance. So, you had to motivate them to sustainable options. You actually looked at the user group 3 who were kind of reluctant to, who knew about sustainability, but who were kind of little reluctant to do it. And then you actually looked at how to do it. Using phase 1 as the cause leading to phase 2, the effect, using personal benefits as a tag to lure users in. So, somehow you need to actually co-opt the users into adopting sustainable practices. In the phase 3, sustainable practices have been practiced and the benefits of them are seen, and so the very reluctant groups, you give them no choice but to adopt these methods. So, the 4th group, you have to convince them to come into this. And it also involves that the phase 1 and 2 as the cause leading to the effect, and then you form a system by which sustainable practices are actually practiced within the society itself. So, you look at it, you started with ground 0, the phase 0, then you had a phase 1 where you actually told them about the benefits of the sustainability issues. Phase 2 was making them adopt to some of these practices, and the phase 3 is actually implementing it. So, all have to follow this method. So, of course, it means that you actually needed a platform to implement it, which can keep track of the progress through which the society is making. So, it has inventories and plan of actions, and also it should match with the overall sustainability development goals. So, and you need to measure this progress in some sense. For this, they thought that it might be good to conceive of a miniature society that kind of illustrates how this approach could be set in action. So, this is Padma Cooperative Housing Society, a feel of the society here. And you can see that a scenario has been created where the household 1 has already adopted it, and they were very aware of the sustainability issues. The household 2 is like the user group 2, they want to implement it, they do not know what methods to use. And the household 3 is like the user group 3, who do not mind taking on sustainability issues. They do not know how to do it. If they are shown the way, they probably will adopt it. And the household 4 is the reluctant ones, which needs to be, they need to be coaxed to adopt sustainability practices. Okay, so let's look at some of the scenarios. Okay, for example, one could be, you have a drive of planting trees within the society itself. Okay, it could be plants to trees. Okay, so you need to feel that the society is together in this. Okay, so you shared whatever you want to do with the people, and you get the whole society engaged in this activity. Okay, so and you need to look at, because plants and trees take a time to do it, so you set a milestones, let's say every 6 months. Okay, and then you see how much contribution planting of plants and trees has done to the society. Okay, for example, you could use the social media to get all the teenagers involved in that. Okay, so they share a plant, they name a plant, and they grow a plant, and they share that within the media itself. Example 2 could be trying to implement green energy. Okay, so basically solar panels. Okay, so you need to work out a logistics of how in the long run it would actually save money for the society, and also show it as an alternative. Okay, so that means that you need to have an indication of the bill showing the difference in the amounts, comparing it, okay, and finally coaxing everybody to put in the funds to make this happen. Okay. Example 3 could be to do with waste management, starting with the waste that is generated at the household, how to segregate it and put it in different bins, and then what to do with that, whether you need to have a composting unit for that. Okay, and also what happens is the whole place also is consciously made sure there are no trash, there are bins over there. Okay, everybody is made aware of this. Okay, so you could also get feedback from the people who maintain the society, how the society is there, and what happens is, after a while, when everything becomes clean and neat, then people become responsible towards maintaining this. Okay, to make it possible, you also need guidelines, so that people will follow these guidelines. You also need template, which is useful for keeping track of what has been done and which time, and what is the progress. Okay, after this, they went back to some of the societies. They had got feedback in their primary research to show what they have thought of as a solution, and got some of the feedback. The feedback was the approach seems to be quite unique and seems viable. Okay, how do you sustain it in a very long period of time? Okay, what if people lose interest? It's initially very nice to start planting trees, but in the long time what happens is, how do you do maintenance? Okay, they also thought that you need to look at the change in behavior here, which is a very important factor. Okay, and yeah, some of the societies even said that what you suggested, we probably will consider taking it up in our society. These are the references, and these are the acknowledgements to the faculty and the other people who have helped them with the survey, and the places where they went to get feedback.